So good morning, everyone. So today I'll be doing the session on mobility with Navin. Navin actually has been running few demos on mobility and few sessions around APAC. So I wanted to give him a chance to show some of the presentation he's been working on. Okay, so first slide. So that's a talk about mobile development with AeroGear. We'll talk about what AeroGear is. And some of you may have attended to join the session on E7, 50 features on E7 and also on Whiteflight and EAP. Unfortunately, Jason couldn't make it. And so I'm going to give you a quick update today, 2 or 3 slides on Whiteflight, so you know where we stand and what technology is behind Whiteflight, and also what's going to make up EAP7. So after Whiteflight, we'll talk about a little bit about the mobile trends. What are the takeaways from that session? Exactly mobile 1.0. So we are actually working on mobile 1.0 today. I'll talk about that and what are the constituents of the first release. We'll talk about what are the development building blocks, what do you need, what is AeroGear, a little bit more detail about it, the tools we support, the languages we support, a quick comparison. If you heard about hybrid, native, and HTML5, what should you choose? Which route you need to go to depending on different considerations. Then we move on to mobile 1.0, which focuses primarily around push. I think you've seen a lot of presentation on OpenShift. We have actually a cartridge for mobile on OpenShift. It's called Unified Push Server. So we have these capabilities already there, and that's been done last year. So we are going to include this in our first release. We'll have a few demos that will go through some of the tools I'll talk about, which are Cordova, HTML5, and native. Then Navin will talk about the more advanced demo that he will do actually on using Android on his machine. And we'll close with what will happen after 1.0, what are the directions, and mobile.next, and we'll also leave a little bit of time for Q&A. So Whiteflight, what is Whiteflight? Everyone knew JBoss AS for more than 10 years today. Our latest iteration of JBoss application server was AS7, and many of you know that we've renamed it, but I think for those who just joined us, we renamed JBoss application server to Whiteflight. So that was an important decision to avoid confusion. So we rebranded actually not just our application server, but a number of projects, because when we say JBoss, people always associate it to JBoss AS. So I think we wanted to create that differentiation, and also have Whiteflight as its own and its own community, and similarly to other projects. So that's been done, and last year it's also the upstream project for Red Hat JBoss EAP, the enterprise application platform. Today we are at the 6th family. We're shipping actually 6.3 the next couple of weeks. We have also 7 in the works, which will be based on Whiteflight. Whiteflight is fast. It's a very, very big difference, and we've done a lot of work in comparison to EAP5 or JBoss AS6 and 5 and previous release. We actually increased not only the speed, but also the bootstrap time, the memory management, the thread management. It's a very lightweight container, actually so lightweight that many people managed to start all the EE services below 1 second. It's also the de facto, the standard app server that you see not only on OpenShift, but every cloud services who wants to run EE workload typically use Whitefly. So this is a very successful project. It includes also a lot of management capabilities. We've actually made a lot of effort to simplify management and to create APIs and also REST endpoints to manage these capabilities. It's a very nice. I'm not going to go into a lot of details on Whitefly today. That's not the purpose of that session. We have a lot of videos on Vimeo, YouTube, and lots of documentation available today. Of course, it's open source, as everything we do. It's developer friendly. We kept all the constituents that made JBoss and all the features that made JBoss a very developer-friendly platform because it's as easy as just unzip and run. So typically, you download it from the internet. It's not just Whitefly. Actually, as I mentioned in the keynote, we also ship EAP 6.2, 6.3 very soon. I think we have a beta. So you're gonna be able to download EAP version as well if you're a developer, and that will include all the great stuff EAP from Whitefly. It supports Java EE standards and beyond. Today we have actually passed the E7 TCK last December with 8.0 CR1. So we're fully E7 compliant. The final release was in February, and we just released last month 8.1. And the great addition actually in 8.1 is we actually have a new in-place update package. So this is a great addition. Actually, if you have 8.0 and you don't want to just download 8.1 and just replace the whole thing, you can just do an in-place update package. So you move from the 8.0 to 8.1. So that's a new patching mechanism that we've implemented, and that's a great addition. All EAP, I think beyond EAP 6.3, will have this patching mechanism in place also. So your customers that used to complain, oh, I don't want anymore to replace the whole EAP installations, now they can actually update using that in-place update package mechanism. And it's the best app server out there. So as we'll see in the next slides, not only we have full Java E7 support, we also have a new high performance web server. It's Undertow. And if you look at some recent benchmark, not done by us, but by other parties, that actually we reach over 1 million HTTP requests per second. I'll put the link here if you're interested to see the benchmark, but Undertow is setting the pace and raising the bar much higher, like we've done with Whitefly. We changed the train to now E is not being bloated, it's super fast, super light. In addition to that, we also offer role-based administration control called RBAC. We developed that actually very closely with Barclays and RBS in UK. So that was a great contribution. So in the pure open source spirit, his contribution did not come just from individual write codes, but also from our ecosystem, OEMs, ISVs, SIs, and customers. So RBS and Barclays help us to build these new capabilities. So we're closing the gap with IBM and WebLogic today, and also providing auditing. So we know exactly who does what and when, and who's been tampering with the system. So now we're able to penetrate, from tier 3 to tier 2 to tier 1 applications in banking, and so I'm very happy with that. And that's already available, and I think since 6.1 or 6.2. So you can have that capabilities today. So with Whitefly 8, we also introduced a port reduction with HTTP upgrade. So that's a very good mechanism to today we ship actually with 2 port opens, 9990 and 8080, one for management, the other one for applications. We potentially also combine everything to a single port, but today we get those two because that's most of the requirements we have, but we have the capabilities to further down to one. As I mentioned, we have automated patching. We have JTK8 compatibility, and I think that was one of the questions earlier. And we also have, with E7, a couple of new APIs that, one new API, JSON, and an increment on JAX-RS for RESTful capabilities and JSON. We'll see probably in the next release of EE, probably some bindings around JSON. So I think that's the missing piece. So, but you'll get some, if you use some of our projects, like REST-easy, we have all these capabilities out of the box.
Monsieur Bruno?
We have not just JBoss Developer Studio as a tooling support, we also have JBoss Tools, NetBeans, and IntelliJ.
Yes, fine. Look, you can see in the slide.
Next slide.
Can you see?
Hello, hello.
Hello. And there's a bit.
We can't see your slides, yeah. Mr. Bruno.
Yes, it seems that there is a problem with BlueJeans here. Just escape.
Le jean bleu.
Can you hear me now? Good. Okay. So where was I? Sorry about that. Okay. So Whitefly. Yes. So I was on JTK8 compatible. Yes, and E7 mobile friendly API. So there's E7 includes JSON as a new API, and I mentioned about REST-easy. Actually also bring new binding capabilities around these two APIs. So we also have great IDE support. So JBoss Tools not only support all our product out of the box, but NetBeans also and IntelliJ now add support for Whitefly out of the box. So that's great to see, and I think that trend will continue, hopefully, to all our products. Next slide. So future EAP drivers and technology trends. You probably saw in my presentation at the keynote that the current E7 revolves around three things. Enterprise. So we've seen a number of APIs that have been added for the things like sorry, I lost my flow. Batching, well, exactly. So I think that's a great contribution from Spring. So Spring Batch was actually something that was very often requested when we met customers, and so the kind of enterprise API we see today are being more and more included into the platform. I mentioned also mobility, so great focus with the new APIs, also especially around REST and JSON, and around productivity. So I think that was what I wanted to say about Whitefly, but I'd like to continue on now back to mobility. So next slide. So there's a trend over the years that moved from our way we engage with users, not only from web to everyone moved their application, their web apps to become device friendly, but typically it was like a port and with a responsive UI on mobile. So we're not really using the full capabilities of these smart devices. So that's been, that was like a year or two ago. We still see some of them, but now we see applications that are more aware of sensing informations, more aware of like locations, and to provide a better engagement platform with your end user, with your customers, with field personnel. So I think this is the focus where JBoss and Red Hat's products are going to aim towards to. Next slide. So in that session, we'll go through how to get started with mobile development, mostly around tooling, IDE, and command line. We'll talk about the different mobile applications. There's today, as I mentioned, like the old style, which is HTML5 based. Although these HTML5 based are actually still allow you to do a mobile first strategy. So leveraging with the different jQuery and other JavaScript client-side library, leveraging your mobile capabilities. We'll get some simple demos to get you going. Unfortunately, I changed laptops, so they were running on my machine, but Blue keeps crashing. So what I'll do, I'll record all of those, and we'll send those along with the recording of that session. I have a bit of code, but these are fairly simple, and a lot of them are already available on the internet on our Vimeo channels, JBoss Vimeo channels. And we'll talk about push notifications, also mobile 1.0 capabilities. So to get going, what do you need? You need obviously a computer. And I put a cloud also because we leveraging a lot of the OpenShift capabilities, where we already have a AeroGear cartridge, which is the unified push server. We also, of course, you need knowledge in one of the languages below, as a Java, JavaScript, Android, or Objective-C or iOS ecosystem. And devices. So I think it's a good time to ask your boss for more budget to get some of those, because you need to test them not only on iOS but different flavors, whether you're targeting Apple platform or Android platform. You'll need definitely these devices to test. Of course, there are tools. If you look on the right hand side, where there's a lot of tools that we also integrated in Eclipse, and we have command line tools. We have the Cordova capabilities that help you simulate your location, XYZ movements and from your device. So they don't replace the physical one, but definitely will help you emulate a lot of the target device you have. We also have tools to generate Xcode projects, and unfortunately I can't show you there, but you'll see in the next slides will show you how. So what is AeroGear? I think last year in the last RHT we've explained a lot about our mobile strategy, what are the projects around it, and it was AeroGear. It is still AeroGear. We're heavily investing in that project around a set of client libraries that are targeting iOS, Android, and JavaScript. We'll see also, of course, BlackBerry and Windows. I think we're looking at those, and you probably see some work in the future. But the core focus right now is definitely the Android and iOS market. So these API, what do they cover? So storage, whether you work offline or online, you need storage. I think we cover those. Connectivity and security and cryptography. We also have a number of server-side components, so unified push server, security, unified sync server, and also to allow bi-directional capabilities, we have a server backend component, which is a Java sender. Next slide. So we have built the team, and the AeroGear team has been putting together a large number of getting starting and cookbooks to get you going. If you look at the iOS cookbook here and the Android cookbook, you'll get a large number of applications that cover basically any kind of use case you can see out there, with the exception of games, obviously. That's not our target right now. So I think you'll see mostly things around user engagement, customer engagement. We have a number of showcase applications. It's not just working on API or technical capabilities. You can do that through either the command line. So we have Forge that include those capabilities. We have also Cordova at the command line, so you can download Cordova, and we support that also in JBoss Developer Studio. So JBoss Developer Studio include Forge, include Cordova, so you can do everything from one single place. So at the moment, we are building Red Hat Developer Studio version 8, so it's in beta. 7.1 already includes all these tooling, especially Cordova and device simulations. So Red Hat JBoss Developer Studio 8 will include all these capabilities plus a number of other advancements and upgrade of all the APIs. So today we have three type of applications that we see out there. Native, of course, the code base is one per platform, one iOS or Android. Code base is HTML5 for it's a single one, and same for hybrid. Support for native features in native, of course. HTML5 is very limited and mostly relying on these JavaScript libraries. And hybrid actually offer a deeper integration. So, and Cordova is our project of choice here. And unfortunately, I was planning to show you, but we'll record that. For deployments of these applications, for native, typically it's stores, whether it's an Android marketplace or the Apple Store. HTML5, you can just make it accessible through the web, and hybrid is the same as native. Learning curve probably changing for iOS. Typically, I think we saw last week the Swift language coming up. I've had a quick look at it, and I think it's definitely lowering the barrier of entry. A lot easier to learn than Objective-C, a lot more powerful, but still tied to the iOS environment, the Apple ecosystem. HTML5 obviously is much lower, and same for hybrid. So choose your path. When you'll have to choose one of these area, but depending on your budget, your competencies, your customer requirements, and time to market. But typically you'll start mocking up something with HTML5, but definitely you'll head towards native the more you want a better experience. I think today the native is still the best platform to develop your mobile apps. So demo HTML5. I still put the screenshot, so here it's a JBoss Developer Studio 8. You'll see in JBoss Central we have lots of quick starts that help you going. Here you have a HTML5 demo that is probably take you 5 minutes to deploy. You can find it on our quick start, and also on JBoss Central when at the first page of JBoss Developer Studio when you launch it. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. The next one is demo on hybrid. So typically here we'll use Cordova, and it's as simple as the following command line. So you need obviously to download Cordova. It's available for iOS, for Apple ecosystem. For if you run Linux or Windows, you can download Cordova. It's simple as creating your demo project. That's typically will be the folder. Then you pass the qualifier. That's typical namespace here, and the name of your application. Then there's a number of commands you can pass, actually including the link of the CLI at the bottom, but all these are also integrated into JBoss Developer Studio. So typically you want to create a scaffold for target platform. So here it's just Cordova platform add iOS, and you can do add Android. And I'm sure there are other platforms supported, but typically here we're focusing on iOS and Android. And it's as simple as build, and you can actually run if you're on the Windows Apple platform, if you run Cordova emulate iOS, you'll have the Xcode iOS device emulator, and voila. So here the hybrid will allow you, if you look at the project structure, when you do that, you will have actually, unfortunately, I'm not on my machine, but in the demo project structure, you will have actually a web folder, a www folder, which typically is your web components. If you have actually already an HTML5, typically you can drag actually the HTML5 application into that, and it will wrap it into a Cordova native wrapper that allow you to actually deploy on iOS or any other platform you want to target, like Android. So Cordova is very, very efficient for that, for hybrid type application. So next slide, on native, we use Cocoa Pods. It's actually some project that allow you to manage all dependencies. So I'll put the links of the cookbook. The cookbooks, and I think when Navin goes back to his workstation, you'll be able to access these cookbooks fairly easily and run them. So you need to install a pod and Cocoa Pods on your station, whether it's Apple or Windows or Linux, and you typically clone these examples and you run pod install. So pod will actually download all the dependencies and of your project. And in that example, it's an iOS cookbook that Corinne put together, and you go back to your folder and you just double click on the bodies in the workspace project, and that will launch your application. So that's very simple. We have a number of cookbooks here, just everything you need, especially on push notification, which will be focusing on mobile 1.0. The next slide, mobile 1.0. So what do you get in with 1.0? So we will ship a client-side set of client-side libraries. So client push SDK for Android, client push SDK for iOS, and all the Cordova plugins for hybrid. On the server side, and many of you have seen that OpenShift cartridge, so unified push server, and also unified push backend component, which allow that bi-direction capabilities with your client, is the Java sender. Tooling-wise, mentioned, we have a Cordova integration. We also have Forge capabilities, so you have all the tooling that you need. So that will be the focus and what will be supported in 1.0. So what are aerogear push notifications? So quickly on these two slides, typically without unified push, typically a developer will have to register for simple push capabilities, Mozilla registration. He will have also to do the Google Cloud registration in his code, and also the APN registration. That's typically what existing push notification providers require you to do, and so it's a lot of specific application coding for each of these cloud notifications. With next slide, with aerogear, we actually provide, and aerogear, in the spirit of aerogear is unification. So not only at the client side unification API for accessing your storage, but also for push capabilities. So here, and that's what we explained last year at the Red Hat Tech Exchange, is actually provide a single entry point for registering your devices and your Google or APN or other type of cloud notification. So that's the actual focus of UPS, Unified Push Server, and Mobile 1.0 today. So all these capabilities on the cloud and on the client side. So we have a different push types, of course, that requires a real app. We have offline capabilities. So even if your app is sleeping in or is in the background or is not even yet launched, you'll still be able to receive those notifications. It's not for streaming. It's more like SMS. I think there's a different SLAs. I think for Apple is 15 minutes, so don't expect miracles. But we've done some tests, and we also have QE working on those. I think we're heading towards a few seconds, and typically we've noticed with Google and Apple below 5 seconds response time. It's battery friendly, and also has very small data payload. And with Christina, actually, she helped me putting some MQTT on OpenShift, and also the AeroGear team some UPS online, and we've actually been able to pull some JSON payload from a small Internet of Things devices, so some small sensors pushing data just using a curl with JSON payload. So an HTTP request will be able to invoke these REST endpoints and push messages. Next slide. So unified push demos. I'm gonna pass over to Navin, and I'll take after his presentation to talk about mobile.next.
Okay, greetings everyone. My name is Naveen. I'm software engineer, mostly working on EAP. So I guess some of you might have heard of me or seen me or heard me yesterday on the other demo. So Bruno asked for some help to talk about some AeroGear demos as well today. So what we're going to do is I'm going to talk to you guys about basically how to set up the AeroDoc demo on for Android specifically. So just to give you guys sort of like a bit of background information on the AeroDoc story. So this is well, I guess it could be regarded as a potential company use case or something like that. But basically, what AeroDoc are, they're a company that provide, I think it's sort of like medical assistance or insurance to elderly people. And what they do is, they have a bunch of salespeople out in the field, and centrally in their main operations center, they get information on new leads. So what they do is they send out information about these leads, where they are, what their phone numbers are, to their agents who are all over the place. So we're not actually going to be able to show the actual push notification on the Android device because like the camera doesn't really focus nicely or allow you to see what's happening. But given what's has been happening with even Bruno's demos earlier today, I think we're probably going to do a separate screencast or a separate recording of what we do want to demo and actually show you stuff that is working, and we'll publish that separately. So anyway, moving on to AeroDoc Android, what exactly do we have to set up? What has to be done? So first and foremost, you need to go ahead and build the AeroGear Android library. So in order to do that, you don't need a huge amount of prerequisites. I imagine most people already have this stuff installed on their computers. So you need minimum of Java 7. Again, most people have it. Maven 3.1.1, which has been available for a little while. I mean, the Android SDK, which you just go and unzip it as you would a JDK or something like that. It's pretty straightforward. Some of the things here, like the Android support library, that one can be a little bit tricky to set up, but again, it's fairly well documented on the Android website. So I'll just show it to you here once it loads up. yeah, it's pretty well documented. All you really have to do is like within the SDK, just there is an executable called Android, or if you are using an IDE like an Android IDE like Eclipse or IntelliJ has a new one called Android Studio. All you do is through a couple of button clicks in the UI, you'll be able to get all the updates you need. So again, that's not too difficult. But what I do want to stress on a little bit is the Maven build. So the Maven, or typically from what I know, Android apps are built using Gradle. And over here, well, generally at JBoss we use Maven, so there is a separate Android SDK deployer, which can be a little bit tricky to set up, but once you've done it once, it's pretty straightforward. Basically, the catch is once you do this checkout, so the GitHub link is over here. I'll just paste that in the chat. So you just do a checkout of that Git repository. And when you run a Maven install, just be sure to install the latest API version, because there have been issues with the previous API versions. So just install API version. Install latest version. Yeah, and that's now you've built your AeroGear Android library, right? So one of the other things to set up is your Google Cloud Messaging. Your Google Cloud Messaging account. All you need is a regular Google account. So as I'm showing here in the sort of Google Developers Console, you just have to register as a Google developer. Add in your Google account, and then here you can create a new project. I've got an AeroDoc one created already. You get like your project IDs and your project numbers here as well. So that's pretty important information that you need to hold so that you can eventually pass it up to your unified push server. But yeah, so just be sure of that. And also, it's pretty well documented by the AeroGear team. So I'm just going to hop into, yes, there we go. So there's a guide up about the Google related setup, how you can go ahead and do that. And from there, they show you a step-by-step guide on how to go. From there, the next step really, what you have to do is to go and set up a unified push server, probably on OpenShift. So currently on this screen over here, this is Bruno's instance, and once you want to register a new application or a new variant, in the let's actually get back to the landing page. We log into our unified push server. We have a specific application, and now we want to get a variant for it. So an application will typically have an Android variant or an iOS variant, or say just a JavaScript web variant as well. So when we want to add a variant, this is where we add in our Google API key and project number, along with a little description. If we want it to be an iOS variant, again, we select the APN, and we have to attach our certificate from that. And then once you have your application ID and master secret for this specific application on the UPS, you take that information and then you go and add it to your AeroDoc backend. So just to kind of put things a little bit in perspective here, and I realize I might be going a little bit too fast, so please don't hesitate to ask me questions. So over here we have the unified push server. That's running up on OpenShift. And then the JBoss AS backend server can be running elsewhere. I mean, on some bare metal or up on OpenShift as well. I have this running on my machine at the minute. So your AS backend server is still your regular Java EE app server where you do the majority of your actual work, your data processing, your persistence, your security checks and things like that. That still all happens there. Your unified push server is basically just holding information on which push networks it's going to talk to for a given application. So yes, now that we have the application ID on the unified push server on OpenShift, and we have the secret from that, we need to provide that information to our JBoss AS backend. So this all comes back down to our main app server, and from there, I will show you this window over here, which is my AeroDoc WAR file running on JBoss AS. So if I was to sign in with admin credentials, I can look at my push configuration, which is where I specify my server URL and my push application ID. I can create a new push config if I want to, so a separate server URL, a different ID, etc., depending on the use case and what I would want to do. Through here, I can also create new leads. I can look at what leads I have available, and depending on where this person is, I can send it to different agents. So let's just go ahead and do that very swiftly. So I'm going to create the new lead, and I'm going to call it lead 4, and I'm going to say this person lives in New York. And I'm going to enter just for now a dummy phone number. I realize this isn't a proper US phone number, but just adding that in. So anyway, if I go and look at lead number 4, I've got a little map there saying where this person might be. I mean, they might be a fish, so like to swim a lot, hence why most of that area is underwater. But anyway, so I'll look at which agents I have around. I'm just going to run a search there. And there we go. I have, for example, Bob and Maria, who are located in New York. So if I want to send this lead to them, I just double check those checkboxes and I hit send lead. And assuming you've got your GCM configured correctly and you go through those little steps to configure your backend and your push server, they should get the leads. I realized something I've probably missed out there. I didn't actually show you how to configure the actual application to go onto Android, which is quite important there. This is again built from source. The URL is up there on GitHub. Again, you just have to edit a few lines in Java, and assuming that you've managed to build your AeroGear Android library properly, you just add in your information into your base backend URL. You say where your unified push URL is, and then you go ahead and just run a regular Maven build. The actual Android device that you want to run it on needs to be plugged in via USB into your laptop, and you have to enable USB debugging. Yeah, so assuming that these steps are just followed correctly step by step, I realize it can take a little bit of time to get right the first time. It took me several tries to get it going the first time as well. Right, and once you go through those steps, you deploy the application onto the device, and then you're good to go. And I think that is pretty much everything everything else that I have to cover. If Bruno's ready, he can probably wander back in and finish up. Or if Bruno's listening, oh, there we go. He's just on his way. But anyway, thanks a lot, guys, and I'll pass it back to Bruno.
Thank you, Navin. Let's go back to the slides. Okay. So what's next after Mobile 1.0? Although we're still working on completing 1.0, we've been thinking a lot of what's next. While 1.0 revolves around push notification, we have a lot of other things we're working on. So beyond 1.0, we're working on data, encrypted client-side data, server-side data access layers. And that actually, if you look at the slide, the project Live Oak today is actually a project which actually hold these constituents. Then we have to have an answer also to run server-side JavaScript. Today we have Vertex. We also have different runtimes. Even today, Java 8 includes Shenandoah, a server-side JavaScript runtime capability. And so you see the trend is going towards having server-side JavaScript, and mostly triggered by Node.js today. So that's definitely the other area we've been working on. And that integration, you can think of a Camel plus JavaScript type integration. So those are the top tier things we're focusing on the next generation mobile platform. On the client side, of course, we're also thinking a lot on the encryption. That's we have data that's kept on the device. The device might get lost. So it's some sort of a data as a service, and with a server-side data access layer that so you don't have to worry about all the mechanism there. So in the same spirit of AeroGear, we'll create a unifying layer in the next generation libraries. So we're working on data access, data synchronization, data security. And these are complex topics, but we're making great progress. Okay, so I think if I'll leave the last few minutes for questions before we end and pass over to the next one. I have to find where's the application here. Okay. So I guess there is no question. What we'll do, we'll definitely. Does Whiteflight work with MudCluster? Yes, it does, of course. So MudCluster is actually we run a few demos already with with thanks Noel, sorry, and we actually have a demo running on the even Raspberry Pi with MudCluster. So for actually 2 years and already on AS7. So that's the goal today. Yeah, and but yeah, Whiteflight, but also with Undertow, which is the new web container. So I think that's probably beyond your question, but I think it's important to know. What else? So I think, Kashi, I think we've answered your question. If no one else has any other questions, then we can call it a day and go to lunch. Okay, well, thanks everyone. And again, we'll send everything on the after that session. We'll record webcast and send them over. Any questions, send them over to myself or Quinton or Navina here. Thanks.